Yo, what is going on YouTube? I am Germ here. So I'm sure as most of you guys know, today was the very first day of the LEC, a day that a lot of European fans and honestly fans all over. I mean, there's a ton of people in North America and I'm sure people in other countries as well that are really hyped up for the start of the LEC. This has been a league as just in terms of their player base and their organizations and even the production value, like the casters, the analysts, just the whole production that's really been on the rise the last couple of years. People all around the world really get excited about this league, especially coming into this season where some of the most popular teams had a ton of exciting changes, obviously with G2, Fnatic, just a lot of interesting storylines to be following going into the LEC. So these things we're really excited. But again, one of the most compelling teams from this offseason was Fnatic, and seeing how this new Fnatic roster is going to be able to come together after they replaced Nemesis and after Reckless had left the team. Well, on the first day, they had what most people would consider a pretty easy matchup against Misfits. Like, Misfits has some solid pieces for sure, but they're not considered to be one of the top teams, and if Fnatic wants to be one of the top teams, you know, Misfits is a team that they should be beating pretty consistently on a regular basis. In this video today, we're going to be going over what exactly happened in this game, where it went right, where it went wrong, and just kind of giving our thoughts and opinions on what we think Fnatic and Misfits are looking like so far after just one day into the LEC. Again, it's not too much. We don't want to overreact too much, but this is what we got to go off of. But before we get into that, I just want to mention real quick, if you're not already subscribed, definitely click that subscribe button really quick. It's fast, it's free, it's easy. Helps you guys stay up to date on all my latest content, and I would appreciate it a ton. We're trying to hit 7K subs as soon as we can into 2021. That would be awesome. You know, we're slowly climbing up the ladder. We're slowly going to get there. Also, drop a like if you do enjoy this video. If you enjoy my content, just want to help support the channel. Helps me out a ton of the YouTube algorithm, getting my videos out to more and more people. With that being said, here we go. So, in the early game, a lot of weird stuff going on. It was a pretty crazy, chaotic game. But one of the main storylines early on and really throughout the whole game was a solid amount of top diff going on. Hyrit, the new top laner for Misfits, a guy that a lot of people maybe haven't heard of, but I was saying, you know, I thought he would be okay coming in the LEC. I don't expect him to be one of the top laners or whatever, but top lane's already a pretty weak position in the LEC. And this guy, he's had an interesting past where he's looked pretty decent, honestly. But obviously this matchup of Hyrit against Whip on the top lane did not start out great, and it was a lot of plays looking like this. You know, Whippo just kind of staying. He's trying to go for some tower plates, maybe greeding a little bit. He does land the body slam on the Hyrit there, but then he just gets absolutely punished, gets chain CC'd forever, just gets caught out and died. And it was just a lot of weird plays like that. Whippo, I can't remember what his final score line was, but it was something not good, maybe like 2-7, 2-8. He tweeted after the game why it was like his fault that the team lost. So it was just a lot of weird plays like that. When you expect Whippo to be one of the better top laners in the whole league, you expect him to come out strong. Now, he is a little bit of a coin flippy player. You know, he does have some of these games. He makes some amazing, crazy plays, and with that, you kind of have to take the bad inty plays sometimes too, because he's not super consistent, but the talent is definitely there because he's carried games on like an international level against some absolutely stacked teams, some stacked rosters, and some very good top laners, probably much better than Hyrit. But you know, that was a play that happened early on in the game. I want to skip ahead to, I don't remember what minute is it, about 14 minutes into the game where there's this another kind of interesting, weird fight where, you know, Vetheo tries to make a big play. You see Fnatic kind of decides that they're leaving, then Whippo decides that he's going to flash body slam in while the whole Fnatic team is just on a completely different page. But it looks like they're able to get away. You know, nothing too crazy has happened until Whippo decides to go in again with another body slam. He gets absolutely punished, and then it just starts this fight where, you know, Upside ends up falling. Hylissang goes back in on the Leona. He dies without getting a kill, and it ends up being a complete ace for Misfits with a triple kill from Razork. And it was crazy, out of control. And to me, that's really just especially the first flash in by Whippo, where I don't know if that was the call, but man, the rest of the Fnatic team was definitely leaving, and then for him to re-engage and start this whole fight where it just kind of falls apart, it's super weird. The comms aren't completely there. Obviously, Whippo just had kind of an off game himself. His mechanics weren't there. His decision making wasn't exactly right, and it just led to a lot of problems and a lot of issues for Fnatic. Now, you wouldn't expect the comms to be perfect. Obviously, they have Niski and Upset coming in, but there is some questions about, like, was Reckless kind of the glue for this team in a way? Was he kind of a piece that held them together in terms of kind of holding them back from making these crazy boneheaded plays? Because we know Hylissang is going to go balls to the walls all the time, making some crazy plays. Whippo is a guy who's willing to do that too, but it seems like at times Reckless is kind of that more calm demeanor guy that is able to kind of rein everybody in and keep everybody under control, and they might be missing a little bit of leadership, a little bit of voice, especially early on in the season where they haven't had time to completely flesh out their playstyle, completely flesh out exactly how this team's going to look. So that's a little bit concerning early on. And then the biggest story of this game, and the biggest reason why Fnatic was not able to win and Misfits ended up picking up the win in this first game this season was, we can watch this little clip here, but I mean, this is pretty crazy, and this is a lot of what happened during this game. Twitter videos always have terrible quality. We see Vetheo going for this 1v1 onto Niski. He stopwatches, he picks up the kill, a stopwatch of his own, and then lands the bubble onto Selfmade, ends up picking up a double kill in like a 2v1 situation. Vetheo was absolutely smurfing on this Zoe, and if we go to kind of the final stats for the game, we will see that he ended up with a scoreline of 8, 2, and 5 on that Zoe. He was so clean. Just a ton of awesome scores for Misfits. Hyrate with 3, 1, and 8 on the Renekton. Also, Razork with an 8, 4, and 9 on Taliyah. This is a guy that I was kind of saying I didn't have that high of expectations for him coming into this season. I didn't know exactly where he was going to rank in terms of all the junglers in the LEC. But also, Taliyah has been pretty broken all over the world so far to start the year. I have not seen too many junglers looking bad on the Taliyah, especially with some setup CC. Obviously, Zoe has CC. Renekton's got the click on CC. Galio with a ton of CC. They have a ton of ways to set up and enable that Taliyah. But Taliyah is just a very strong champion right now. Then, obviously, you take a look at the score lines from Fnatic, where we see the 2 and 7 on the Whippo, on the Gragas from Whippo, where we saw, he had a lot of really interesting plays. Hylissang also was not as bad as Whippo, I wouldn't say, but he was not great either with the 1, 6, and 5. Niski actually looked pretty solid in this game. He was able to pick up some kills, and I mean, he was scaling on the Victor. There's only so much you can do early. Upset with a decent game on the Kai'Sa as well. Selfmade, not a great game, obviously, by Selfmade standards. We aren't saying, like, oh, Selfmade played well, but he didn't play bad. There's only so much you can do. I wouldn't really blame it on him, but my main cause for concern for Fnatic was mainly the play of Whippo, but also the play of Hylissang, where these two just didn't look on the same page. The other team was just a little bit too inty at times. And again, shout out to Misfits for sure. They looked good. Vetheo looked way better than I think a lot of people expected. There was a lot of interesting things here. Vander, obviously 1-1 in 19. He's a huge piece of this team picked up, and they're hoping that bot lane can really be just a point of strength on this team. But if their solo laners continue to play like this, and if they can play like this with any consistency throughout the season, Misfits is going to be a very scary team. But, I'm not ready to say that Fnatic is bad, or they're not going to be a good team, or this roster isn't going to work out or whatever. But at least early on, from the scrims and offseason and practice, whatever they've done so far and stuff, it definitely seems like the comms, and just the communication and the playstyle is not completely fleshed out, is not completely clean yet. And again, that's to be expected because we're early on in the season. But all these other teams, the LEC as a whole had a lot of roster changes. So all the teams are going to be kind of in that same area of, we made some big changes, we're trying to learn, we're trying to grow. We're trying to kind of develop that synergy and stuff. So it's not like Misfits should be any more coordinated or any more clean than Fnatic. So that is an excuse, but I don't know if it's necessarily a great excuse to use for Fnatic. Honestly, for me, I go away from this game, the bright side being that Niski looked pretty good. Niski did look like a solid member of this team. Not that I didn't think he was going to be solid, but if Niski can be consistently this good, that will be very good for Fnatic, and should potentially be a step up from Nemesis, but at the least should be a very solid mid laner for Fnatic, which will be awesome for the team, because obviously I think Hylissang will have better games than this. I think Whippo will have better games than this. Yes, they will have some indie games like this as well. They always did. They're going to continue to do it. That's that high risk, high reward playstyle they play with. But if Niski continues to play well, there will be some games where he can help enable the whole team, where Selfmade will have some big carry pop-off games, and Fnatic will come back. But I believe I ran a poll a couple of weeks ago where I think everyone voted Fnatic as the second best team in the LEC, and I do still think Fnatic will be all right, but there are some other tough teams. Mad Lions looks really like they're going to be really solid this year. Rogue looks like they're going to be so good. Schalke could even be up in that mix. So Fnatic needs to come and play, and if they continue to look like this, I mean, they could really be in trouble. And there is a world where Fnatic maybe is unable to qualify for Worlds this year, which would be really crazy and would be really concerning. Again, I'm not ready to call it this soon, this early, anything like that. But man, this first game of the season was cause for concern, because people expected Fnatic to be one of the top teams in the LEC, and people expected Misfits not to be one of the bottom teams in the LEC, but a mid to bottom team. There was a lot of relative unknowns, a lot of huge question marks on this roster, but we saw some really exciting, promising things. The biggest takeaway from this for a lot of people is Vetheo going to be that new big upcoming EU mid, because there's a few guys to watch out for this year. Maybe Jekko Lad, maybe Vetheo. Blue has been kind of on the radar for some people. We'll have to see who's able to continue to develop and grow as the season goes on. But this is not like the locker fucking tournament. This is not your preseason tournament that doesn't matter, where people aren't trying. This is the start of the LEC regular season. This is teams going their hardest, trying their best. And man, there just looked like some stuff that was way, way off for Fnatic. And yes, there is obviously a long season ahead where they have time to fix some mistakes, to just come back and bounce back from a loss like this. It's absolutely not the end of the world. But again, the season started. We got to react to the stuff we see. We got to react to the games that are being played. And this was a spicy one. One of the bigger upsets, or definitely the biggest upset of day one so far, and kind of the most surprising result, where people expected Fnatic to come out strong because they do have 3 of the same players coming in from last season. It's not, and then, so there shouldn't be that much going wrong. But obviously, the loss of Reckless is going to be felt, and it's going to take some time to replace his leadership, some of his in-game decision-making and stuff like that as well, and just the consistency that he was able to provide. Again, not that Upset played bad. Upset was honestly was one of the better performing Fnatic members, but again, not having him, having to make some changes can be crazy. But that is pretty much it for this video today, guys. Definitely drop a like if you enjoyed it. It helps me out so much with the YouTube algorithm and everything. I would appreciate it a ton. Leave a comment down below. Do you think it's, are you panicking a little bit if you're a Fnatic fan? If you're not a Fnatic fan, do you think maybe this team was a little bit overrated? Or do you think they're going to be fine? Do you still have them rated as the second best team in the LEC? You think they're good to go? Or do you think dropping a game to Misfits and looking this bad and doing so, might be a little cause for concern? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. Subscribe to update on my latest content. Hopefully catch you guys in the next one. But until then, peace!